guess I should say, these intellectual powerhouses come together, like what created those companies and like what made them successful from your research?
Yeah, I think it's a great question for a number of reasons. And what I would say is like, so to take a step back, because a bunch of the people who are listening to this may not actually know like a lot of the history here, right?
Yeah.
And so it's probably worth like 30 seconds of background for people who haven't read the book. Um, if you know, it's highly likely that if you're listening to this, you've used PayPal at some point, or you've used one of its derivative products. You've maybe used Venmo, which is owned by PayPal. And so the idea basically is, where did modern PayPal come from? Well, modern PayPal was really created in 1999, actually 25 years ago this year. And it is the fusion of two companies. Those two companies, one company is called Confinity. Confinity is created by these two people named Max Levchin and Peter Thiel. And they set out to build, at the time, what they set out to build was this like app to allow Palm Pilots to be money to each other. So actually kind of like ironically an early version of Venmo. There's this second company. It's owned by a guy named Elon Musk. Nobody really, no, he's not famous at the time, but he owns this URL, x.com, and he also wants to play in financial services. His idea is that x.com can become kind of the like super bank of the future. Anything related to money, he wants x.com to do, including, let's say, my ability to send Kyle $10 digitally. And so both of these companies are doing money transfer. They're like figuring out ways for me to make it easier to get Kyle money, whether that's through a Palm Pilot or whether that's through an email address. In late 1999, both of these companies become a big hit on a website called eBay.
Yeah.
And again, for listeners who don't know, eBay auction website, you probably know it. It was huge back in the day. It's still a publicly traded company, still has, but it was like hot back in the late 90s. Everybody's suddenly like thinking, oh, this is like the way commerce is going to work in the future. And so what eBay didn't have was a way for auction buyers to pay auction sellers that was super easy. So Kyle, let's say you auction off, and maybe one day you will, that Bookum hat, right?
Yeah.
I buy it on eBay. I have the winning bid, say it's $20. And there, at the end of that transaction, eBay basically says like, great, Kyle and Jimmy, feel free to figure out however you want to pay each other. So maybe I'd send you a check, maybe I'd send you cash. I don't know how I would send it to you. And into that void steps these two companies, which allows me to pay you either through x.com's money transfer platform or through Confinity's service that they called PayPal. What happens is they basically get into this arms race against each other in late 1999 and early 2000. And they end up merging in this kind of shotgun wedding. So these two teams are brought together. It's like a 6-week process. It's super fast.
Right.
And you have a lot of firepower in the room. You have a lot of very smart people in the room. And I would say, just taking one more step back, for listeners who don't know the phrase PayPal Mafia, the reason this story really matters is because the people who created almost every product and service, like you've probably used a product or service that's linked to one of the people who created this company. So if you've ever watched a YouTube video, the YouTube founders worked at PayPal. Yep. LinkedIn, founder worked at PayPal. Tesla, SpaceX, Palantir, Yammer, the first investment dollars into Facebook all started at PayPal. And all of these people worked together from 1999 to 2002 to build this company from scratch. It was, for many of them, it was their first startup experience, and they went on to have many other startup experiences. I wanted to answer the question with the book, well, how the hell did you all end up at one place? That's the statistical odds of that, like 1,000,000 to 1. I was like, how did that even happen? Because to have like even one of these people in a room by themselves is really impressive. But to have the founder of SpaceX, like working shoulder to shoulder with the founder of YouTube, working shoulder to shoulder with the founder of LinkedIn, like that's bananas. And so that's what I was trying to figure out. And hopefully that's enough context for your listeners on why this book matters. This is the formative experience for an entire generation of technological talent. And a lot of what happened later drew on what happened at PayPal.
Yeah, because before your book, there would just be like that one meme you always saw where it's like showing all the companies that came out of PayPal, and you'd hear them say, you saw that photo where it's like the PayPal Mafia is all sitting there. And so that's kind of like what you mostly heard. And then you heard them tell stories here and there. So the way you distilled it all into this book, you get everything, right? And one thing I noticed was that David Sachs talked about, instead of it, he said he thought of it more of a diaspora than a mafia. In your opinion, what makes what they built more of a diaspora or a mafia, or do you even, yeah, how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a couple reasons why, and I think if you were to like, I interviewed a lot of people for this book, right? Over 200 people, and one of the things is that it really, some of the answer to that question depends on who you ask. But I was able to look at it from a sort of 10,000-foot view. Like, why did PayPal go on to birth all of these companies? We have a PayPal mafia. Why don't we have a Google mafia, right? Why don't we have like another insert mafia, insert company name mafia? And there's a couple of reasons why. One key reason is this: the company was successful. So it was like one of these things where like so many internet companies were created in the late 90s that didn't succeed. But the people who were part of this company, as Peter Thiel basically put it like this: he said, we had the experience of something being very hard, but we were actually successful with it. So the lesson that people learned is that you could do hard things in this space and win, right? As opposed to, like, if it had been really hard and everybody failed, maybe they all would have gone and done something completely different, right? And so you have a situation in which it was hard, but they succeeded. That's one reason, is like they learned the lesson. Hey, you can make an internet company and take it public someday and make a lot of money doing it. That sort of thing. One thing two is the company was acquired after it went public, and a
Yeah.
lot of very talented people used the acquisition as an opportunity to leave. So they didn't stay with the company for a really long time, meaning they went off and like did other things, right? They didn't want to stay there. They wanted to go off and like create new companies, create YouTube, create LinkedIn, create Tesla, create SpaceX. And the way he described it, David Sachs quite colorfully described it. He said, we were a little like the Israelites, like Jewish people. He was like, they burned down our temple, and we had to all find different ways to survive, right? And he made that joke, but it's sort of an apt description. Like, what happened is this company, eBay, came and acquired PayPal, and these people all had to find different things to do after, right? They weren't all many of them, they all left, some of them left willingly, but they all had to find like new ventures, new things to create. I would
Yeah.
say the third thing,
Right.
the third key reason is, if you look at where the investment dollars came in for a lot of these early startups that these people went off to create, a lot of that money came from other people who worked with them at PayPal. A lot of the early employees who worked together to create new companies came from the PayPal alumni group. So I'll give you an example. The two co-founders of a company called Yelp, which I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with,
Of course.
both worked at PayPal together: Russ Simmons and Jeremy Stoppelman. The first money into Yelp came from their colleague at PayPal, Max Levchin, who really was like, you guys are smart. You're creating this company. Here's a check. Let's see what happens. And, that company obviously grew to become very big. It's a publicly traded company, all the things. But there was a little bit of like, you had access to a network that could give you capital, and a network where you could draw upon these people to get talented hires and talented co-founders. So there's a lot of other reasons why there is a PayPal mafia or a PayPal diaspora, but those are sort of three big reasons why.
No, I was gonna say I watched another interview of yours, and you were talking about the mere fact that this company survived is crazy, and that's why you said as soon as they got to IPO, they're like, all right, we need to go, we gotta go try different things. I have other visions. I don't want my life to just only be PayPal, which ultimately gave us some of the, like you said, Yammer, LinkedIn, all these things that we kind of use now. If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookumapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.